Now, he is going to be our first spokesperson, and I would like to give you a brief introduction. He is a very prolific academician, and this is only a brief profile. He is a multifaceted academician who has many accolades to his credit. He has served in the Indian Air Force. He has taught at the Jai Narayan Vyas University, Jodhpur. He has, among other very, very important credentials, he is also a visiting professor. He is a visiting professor to many, many universities. He has and is on the faculty of visiting professors of Nitra, Slovakia, IIT Roorkee, Saranpur campus, DMS Doon University, GHU Dehradun, FET, GKV. He has taught at Al House University, Abu Dhabi, CU, South Africa. So he is indeed a very, very eminent scholar. And he has also, to his credit, been the editor and is editing several journals, which includes the Gurukul Business Review. He was the founder editor, an international refereed journal, and also the editor of Manthan. He is a prolific writer with a number of articles, papers presented both abroad and in India, besides being invited as the keynote speaker with several articles in national and international journals. He has written many book chapters, written many books, and he has guided many scholars and brought to fruition several research projects. He has been specially honored with the Haridwar Gaurav by Adhyam Chetna Sangha for academic contribution and excellence in 2019. He has worked as Head Scientific Research Department, SRD, Sultanate of Oman, and is presently working as Professor, Head, Dean, Faculty of Management, FMS, Coordinator, IPR, EAIC Cell, and Coordinator, IQAC at Gurukula Kangri University, Haridwar. So may I request Professor and illuminate us with his speech, Professor V.K. Singh.
Thank you, Professor Sujata Gurudev, for such a kind words. In fact, when you keep on telling a lot of ornamental words for anyone, the expectations gets very rises for especially the speaker's point of view and the listener's point of view. At the outset, I owe my heartiest gratitude and thanks to the baseline and the waterline, and you can say the lifeline of today's show, Deepak Bhagatji, and my salutation and extended warm regards to Professor G. Singham Saab, who is the patron of CTEF Meghalaya chapter, and also Pro-Vice Chancellor, Nehu Tura campus. And I could see Professor Ahmed is also there, and Professor R.M. Pant Saab too is about to come on today's session. I've been allotted 30 minutes time, so right now it is 2:46, so I'll be just trying to justify with whatever topic has been given to me. Today I'm going to speak on the National Education Policies 2020, that is implications of higher educations. Well, dear academicians and friends and scholars, if you talk of National Education Policy 2020, what is also called NEP 2020, which was approved by the Cabinet of India on 29th of July 2020. And when you look at the outlines, the version of India's new education policy system, this new policy replaces the previous national policy on education, which was of 1986. And the policy is comprehensive a framework of elementary education to higher education, as well as vocational training in both rural and urban India. And this was only being phrased looking to what actually is being happening in the developed countries. And when you look on to specifically the policies to somehow aims to transform India's education system right from 2021 onwards. Well, the suggestions talks about 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 pattern has been put in a place with respect to the age of children. So there was a direct touch of the years and the growth of our students or growth of our lads they are about to get into the educational system. And presumably this demarcation has been done keeping in the mind the psychological power children possess while transcending through the childhood towards adolescence. And when you specifically look onto NEP 2020, which has considered preschools in its plan, which is the first of its kind for any government to spend its outreach, at least to particularly this level. Now, what is more to be specifically looked is that there are many reasons that causes the dropout of school-going children, ranging from poverty to the traditional setups of the families. And if you look on reality to it, is mental pressures such as forcing them to take out of the courses against the choice of the children, and sometimes you bullying in the it happens very commonly. It happens for bullying in the schools, and we as an Indian have a mindset that only children with engineering and medical degrees succeed in life. That has to be changed. Literally, that has to be changed. And what I feel when you look onto the real pin-up structure of NEP 2020, you will find more of such anomalies that has to be dropped out of this, because this thought is institutionalized in the core ideology of almost every middle class Indian. Far-fetched problem emerges from this particular base, because this leads to extreme pressure on children to pursue STEAM courses, which was referred to. And although this interest may lie in some artistic facet of the world, unless this government envisions or having said that it is the need of our hour to propagate non-STEAM institutions and the great future that lies ahead of the person who pursues it. Meaning hereby is that when you trying to change the mindset of a people, is not a one-day activity or one-day pattern. It will be leads to take decades or two to revamp the thought process, and then the proposition to scrap like science or arts or commerce, which normally brings them under one roof, will start making some sort of senses, at least what we are thinking for our coming generations. So one of the other implications that can be seen in a foresight is the excessive importance that is given to the vocational courses. This can give raise to reduced interest. This can give raise to academicians and uptake a vocational profession for children, since at that stage, when you look onto the small number of students are interested in the curricular part. Above all, children living in the rural areas are exposed to the shortcomings of monetary benefits, and sometimes they get the distress in the household that ensures thereafter. So this makes earning money more important to them rather than gaining appropriate education or to look on to create to meaningful life. And sometimes you also upheld to stable livelihood in a long term process. So what is more important is that thus we from this we can infer that a large number of socio-economical aspects that governs the decision of children to continue or to discontinue the studies really poses the need to gain the vocational training, which really adds to this that makes them discontinue their studies and thereby they become children. They become it forces to go for the child labor. So this imposition is to set a cause more problems than acting as a perceived solution. Well, if you look into the one aspect of digitalization, which normally helps this scenario so far from true, which you expect to unless the basic needs and importance of education is instilled in the society, which you can just use a word called a baseline, or you can use a word called the basement of any education what we are looking to or what we are looking for propagating to look forward for. Now, the another point is the medium of imparting the knowledge. It is proposed that till a fifth standard, of mode of communication has to be mother tongue. So this brings more about a serious problem that shall prevail in the society. A child speaks his mother tongue at home, so it is extremely crucial to make him proficient in English language. So this has been a mass migration across state in the country. Let us assume on a Bengali family, I'm just giving example, who settles down in Gujarat. So the children shall only be exposed to Gujarati, or you can look on to the Bengali until the age of 10, which you can say he, if I'm using the word 10 of his age, so maybe he's on at the grade of fifth grade, or maximum till the age of 13, or if you say 13 means he's the age of 13 means we are talking about the eighth grade. So for the first 13 of his life as a child, we will not be, what you can say, exposed to the universal language that is spoken across the world, that is English. Then how do we ascertain that there will be a considerable amount of uptake of digital tools, specifically when you are going to create for the children? This can also cause a generation of kids with the poor. You can also talk in terms of English speaking skills, which will eventually limit their networking or socializing or cognitive skills. Meaning hereby, the total noble thoughts behind the carving out this particular point in the draft can be, recreated to bring about an acceptable policies. An alternate could have to be, look forward to say the various subjects within the curriculum that can present the rich history of a particular state of a child who resides and in India or at a large before he makes to go for the stewardship. Above all, the books which we are talking about can be made mandatory so that no children can miss out on reading and discussing such be initiated among the students. We can also look forward for the audio visuals. We can also look forward for heritage walks to be organized to communicate about the rich heritage of city where they resides. Above all, to some senses, we can use like street plays, dramas, and theater can also be organized. So these would help in honing the artistic skills within the kids, which we normally don't see more, especially in the rural front. Above all, when we look onto the educational national education policy of 2020, it envisions an Indian-centric education system that contributes directly to transformation our national sustainability into an equitable and vibrant knowledge of society of what actually we are providing in terms of high quality education to all. So if you focus to NEP 2020, which was a welcoming change and a fresh news amid all the negativities surrounding the world in 2020, the announcement of NEP 20 was purely unanticipated by many people, especially academicians. The change that NEP 2020 has suggested were something that many educationists never saw coming. The education policies has impacted schools and colleges education level, and this talk will focus on NEP 2020 and its impact on the higher education, mainly Fetch 2. So this new policy is expected to bring in a positive, and ideas have been considered while formulating these policies to improve effectiveness and finally achieve to its longer goal. Because we need to be to a cluster formation, and when we look onto the achievement of longer goal, it means we are more into some sort of really great aspects or great steps that we're going to take as far as policies and a bit of other Indian education system and new level of excellence is concerned. So now let us see the most significant highlights of NEP 2020 is the proposal to set up the Higher Educational Commission of India, what we use in a short form is HECI. So, a single overarching umbrella body for higher education, which excludes, I'm talking about, we're not including that, which excludes medical and legal educations. So this HECI has a 4 independent verticals, which frames parallel to this, and they are a National Higher Education Regulatory Council, which we use a word called NHERC, then for regulations, and then another is General Educational Council, GEC, and they fetch for standard settings, the benchmarks of what they feel or what they get it from the other developed and developing countries. And the third is about the Higher Education Grant Commission, what we can use is HEGC, which is a funding agency. And last but not least is about the National Accreditation Council, that is NAC, for accreditation. So in a country, to have a uniformity in education standards, a single umbrella body was always being thought of right from in the beginning. But why it has not happened, let us not go into this. But let us be very positive of the multiple independent government bodies that lead to too many standardized, issues across institutions, and along with that, any improvement which we look onto the plan or to implement in this higher education domain, it takes year and year. So looking to this, if the proposal plan is implemented, uniformity and coordination for all institutions in this country will be much easier and much better for things like what we can move forward for. Well, now coming to the institutional restructuring and consolidation, which aims to end the fragmentations of higher educations by transformation, or you can say transforming the higher education institutions into large multidisciplinary, we can use the word, creating well-rounded and innovative individuals, and above all transforming other countries educationally and economically to put into the increasing the gross enrollment ratio to higher education, which if you really talk in terms of including the vocational training from which was 26.3% of the data which we fetched from 2018, which is going to be pumped up to 50% by 2035. So that was the one issue which is almost double the current percentage. And above all, we talk of some holistic and multidisciplinary education, which strives in an integrated way to improve all human capacities, that is, mental or cultural or social or physical, emotional, and moral of what we can talk about. This missing link here seems to be non-availability or you can say shortage of basic infrastructures that is, look forward for training faculties, research faculties, gap between demand and supply, etc., which is to be looked forward for. So the government need to ensure that the current facilities should be strengthened with some added resources to deliver effective education as a whole. Now, the second highlight for the proposed is to introduce a single university entrance exam, which is conducted by National Testing Agency (NTA). So earlier, to seek admission to the various universities, the students need to go through the burden of universities' multiple examination program, plus the varied difficulty level of question paper across many central universities. Nothing were more weighted. Some were too tough, some were too easy. So that was also a haunt to look forward for. And if this plan is implemented, so a student can give one entrance exam and get saved from burden of many. So at that same time, the questions paper level will also be standardized, error-free, as NTA conducts it, and the admission process will be streamlined. So that was another way to look forward for. Well, the policy also allows the university to set up the offshore campus, as well as many foreign universities can set up the institution in India. This move is welcoming indeed. So it will lead to competition, talent flow, and above all to a key practice from the outside to India, which will ultimately lead to a great deal of improvement in the countries which is looked forward as far as the educational standards are concerned. Now, then we focus to the multidisciplinary college in every district by 2030. So this was also another move, and is a promising idea as well. It will renew the country's focus on arts, humanities, and a multidisciplinary form of education to ensure that our students are skilled as well as their career ahead thinking point of view. Above all, remote learning of concepts has kept our students very far behind in the terms of skills so far. So this was another move. One thing which it really touches was about the discontinuing of MPhil and focusing more on the research will also reap large along with the benefits if the system is able to manage the current status of research students. When the country is able to produce only half the requirement, that is 50,000. So many research seats in a tier 2 and 3 program of institutions remain vacant, and they feel more close and way of understanding that when you look onto MPhil as a well accepted course among employees, and is still seen as less rigorous than doctoral programs, but far better than many PG programs. So before discontinuing, the ecosystem need to substitute well accepted among employers and the students as a whole. Well, when you talk of the good ideas behind the certain NEP was the establishment of academic bank credit, which really fascinated the academicians, that we can understand and we can come up with this idea of definitely bringing ease for the students and academic institutions. They have also mentioned about the phasing out of the affiliation of colleges in the next 15 years. So this is expected to empower college and transform themselves into autonomous degree granting college or constituent college of any university when you talk of. With this policy, I can easily foresee gross enrollment ratio, which is raising for the country as well as for the multiple entry and exit options as an undergraduate level have been proposed to allow establishment academic bank credit, what I have discussed in the previous way of ABC, which is a good idea and will definitely bring students to a good affirmation and reactions of what we really look forward for, because this step of a multiple entry and exit option is especially in undergraduate courses with appropriate certificates seems a good initiative, because you practically look forward for some operational glitches, including acceptance of these partial certificates or degrees or diploma, which they put into the industry from. So another detailed plan is required for those students who want to change subjects during their degree course, or or we can also look forward to understand the larger questions finally related to losing an academic year or getting a dilution of degrees value in the long run. So this academic bank of credit will help store credits, and the concept of credit will finally get more weightage in India. And let me tell you that it's already, things are working into the good to some of the developed countries. So I think this is one of the best initiative, especially from the cluster of students' point of view. However, the students today will have the freedom to experiment with what they have to learn and have to get the flexibility into it. So, especially when you look onto the agricultural universities, legal universities, health science universities, technical universities, and institutions in other fields will aim to become multidisciplinary institutions. So, following points can be looked forward for professional education that has to be covered by NEP 2020, and the number one is about agricultural education and veterinary sciences. Number two, we talk of legal education, and number three, we can talk of the health education. So when you say agricultural education and veterinary sciences, we are prone to look forward for the comprise agricultural university comprise roughly 9% of all universities in the country, and the total enrollment in the agricultural and allied sciences is less than 1% of all the country's enrollment when you look into the education policies. So overall, if you say the agricultural technological parks to be promoted, technological incubation centers to be promoted, and dissemination of and promotion of sustainable methodologies has to be brought forward for. So the design of integrated with the general education will increase sharply. When you look at the legal education, you'll find they need to be competitive globally, adopting best practices and embracing new technologies for wider across to and timely delivering justice. Because at the same time, it must be informed and illuminated with the constitutional value of justice. Meaning hereby, when you say social, economics, and political things, when you look on forward for certain good brief up and good things. For example, the curricula for legal studies must reflect socio-cultural context along with its evidence-based manner, or the history of legal thinking, or principle of justice, the practice of jurisprudence and other related content which appropriately and adequately move forward to the state's institutions, which offers laws, education, and considerably, bilingual educations for further lawyers and judges in English and other languages as a whole. The third thing which we discuss is about the healthcare education, and in the healthcare education, like Ayush, Ayurveda, yoga, and naturopathy, Unani, Siddhi, and homeopathy, etc. These has to be more greater emphasis on preventing healthcare and community medicines in all the forms of healthcare education, what we look forward for. Then looking to another aspect that is called a technical education aspect, which we see which includes a degree and diplomas in engineering, technology, management, architecture, town planning, pharmacy, hotel management. Then you also look forward for catering education and technology. So this will not only be a greater demand for well-qualified manpower in this sector, but it will also require closer collaboration between industry and higher education institutions to drive innovations and research fields. So one of the major lack which we talk in terms of aspects of policy is the paucity of a proper timeline. The implementation of this policy requires congruence of administration's goals at every stage, right from the grassroots level to the ministry, which is difficult to achieve in India. Thus, I personally feel that there are considerable numbers of loopholes in NEPs 2020, but that can cause irrecoverable troubles in future and cause more harms than good to the society. So let us not go to that path. We will have to wait and see whether the elaboration projects remain on paper and translate successfully as per the think tanks of the country is concerned. So every ideas and policies expected to bring positive systematic change in the system. and this is not an exception. But we need to remember that most of these plans and policies fails due to operational and implementational issues. So that is what we really look forward for. But looking to a great aspect and looking to a great overall scenario of NEP 2020, I'm sure that we have and we are going to get lots of benefits, and I'm sure that our would-be generations, though we are going to about to step in coming future, they will have a great deal, and I know when they are going to come up with their education, they are going to thank at least the previous people, those who have mugged up and given a pinned-up structure of new education policy as a whole. So thank you very much for patience hearing, and I'm open up for any questions or any suggestions or anything which you feel at this particular time you need to come up, because this was very short to grasp up all the points of NEP 2020, but still, I'm sure any people, those who have contributed as an educationist, those who have contributed to our Ministry of Education, is they need a salutation right from everyone who has contributed, because at least we are here. Because what I feel, if anything in this world is permanent, it is a change, and this change is going to come up with lot of booms and positivity to our own educational pedagogy contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Singh. It was very interesting. In fact, you have covered so many aspects and given us so much of information, beginning with the school dropouts, and then you had gone on to tell us about how the novelty in this education policy, about the language structures, about the multiple exit entry points, about the need for vocational education. And also you have talked about how, this is the first time that it needs to be done, and, you have left it open-ended that, yes, we're going to look at it. It's a wonderful initiative. And it has been very wonderful listening to you, Professor Singh. And what we're going to do just now is we're going to get our next speaker to speak on, and then we'll have the question-answer session. Be a combined question-answer session. If it's okay with you, sir, that's how we thought we'd go about it.
Sure, please, I'm okay with this.
Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite and introduce, I would like to introduce Professor Rajiv Mohan Pant, who is from the National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Guwahati, India. Now, he is associated with, and has taught economics and management in premier educational institutes. He has, in fact, been teaching at BIT Mesra, at NIFFT Ranchi, NERIST, Nirjuli, Arunachal Pradesh. He has completed a lot of research projects funded by various agencies like AICTE, MHRD, MacArthur Foundation, ICSSR, JNU. Now, he is very much interested in teaching and research, and he's an avid trekker, and has conducted outdoor management development programs and MDPs for the executives of some PSUs. And he has visited many universities, delivered lectures all around the country, and he offers consultancy on behavioral aspects to various organizations. Professor Pant is a member of the Scientific and Technical Advisory Group STAG of the National Mission on Himalayan Studies, Ministry of Environment and Forest, Government of India, Scientific Advisory Committee, SAC, GBP, NIHE, Almora, and is also associated with working groups of the Niti Aayog. He is presently heading the National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayati Raj, Guwahati, under MORD, Government of India, as director since 2nd September 2014. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we would now be welcoming Professor Pant. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Jataji, for this
Thank you, sir.
uh, very kind introduction. And it is indeed a pleasure to be here with you all on this platform. Namaste. Namaste. Uh, it's not only a way to greet people, but when I speak about Northeast region, it has a different connotation. Because Namaste, it includes all the first letters of all 8 Northeastern states, and for Nagaland, A for Arunachal Pradesh, uh, uh, M for 3 M's, so Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Manipur. Uh, A again for Assam, S for Sikkim, and T for Tripura. And now you must be wondering, what does this E mean in this Namaste acronym? E is for economic transformation through education, sustainable economic transition or economic development through education. And now we're talking about national education policy today. And it was really wonderful. It was really wonderful listening to Professor Singhaiya, my old friend, who set the ball rolling for this beautiful evening. And he almost covered everything that this education policy offers. And it was followed by Professor V.K. Singh, another great erudite presentation. I don't think anything is left for me to now speak. But anyway, since task has been given to me, I'll surely, try to say something. Uh, I hope you can see the screen. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's
All
visible,
right.
sir.
Okay, and I'm audible also?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes,
sir.
very audible.
Okay, that's great, that's great. So, very good afternoon to you all. In fact, a wonderful start given by Professor Singhaiya and Professor V.K. Singh. And as I mentioned, I have not very significant, nothing left for me to, add, but still I'll add few things. Uh, just like Professor Singhaiya, I'm also a technologically challenged person. I don't how to use this. It may create some. Sorry for very for this inconvenience.
Sir, you please click on the slideshow.
Uh, I'm not able to move these slides forward. I'm not able to. Can anyone help? Or maybe
Sir, slideshow one, your icon is there. You are seeing just above the slide, above the window, there is one slideshow. There you click.
that's the problem. I'm not able to see that.
Or else, sir, just you click. Are you using your laptop?
Yeah, I'm using my laptop. But it's
Then
not
you
doing
just
any.
give a click in your laptop, your this one, with your finger. You just
No,
press
no, no,
once.
it's not happening. That's the thing. Then go to the light. Then I'll just ask for some support.
Anybody is there in your office, sir? Any
Yes,
young
yes, yes,
man?
yes, yes, yes. I'm getting them. I'm getting them.
Please call them, sir.
Yeah, though I'm a very young person. Not
Yeah,
able
you
to.
are the youngest. You are the youngest one, sir.
I know. So I think I'll have to call someone senior.
Yes, sir.
All right, all right. It goes to the library. All right, I think it moved, right?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
You can do one thing. If you could
Yeah.
kindly mail me, I'll present it from here.
Okay. All right, then let me do it without PowerPoint also. But I may miss out few things. But anyway, I'll just share my thoughts just like that till my support comes, right? So anyway, we are talking about this national education policy, which was launched just 2 days back, which was approved, and it reminds me of an old uh, address of Prime Minister Modi ji on the occasion of this Children's Day, this Teachers' Day on 5th September 2014. And he narrated a story that he interacted with some youth, and I asked them, "What do you do?" And reply back came the reply that I have done my post graduation. Then Modi ji again asked, "What do you do exactly?" So again, they were not very sure. He said, "I have done my MA in so and so subject." Then finally, he diluted the question. He said, "What you can do? What you can do?" And then, of course, they were not able to give a very complete reply, very crisp reply. So Modi ji on that day, highlighted that we are getting education without much direction. We may get a lot of degrees, but still we are not very sure what we are capable of doing, what we can really deliver. And somehow we also have to accept our failure. Higher education, we get a lot of good ads in newspaper, magazines, think beyond IIMs, think beyond IITs, and transform the world and all that. Okay, and you might have seen a lot of pictures, graduates, young graduates after receiving degree, they throw up their caps probably to test the gravitational power to see, whether it can suppress their ambitions, and they say they're so ambitious while studying. They are so ambitious, and people have a feeling that even sky is the limit. And all those who say sky is the limit, they are also not very ambitious. They are convinced to look beyond even the skies. But once they are out from their respective institutions of these higher education, they are disillusioned. They search for jobs, they struggle for getting suitable jobs, and finally, a lot of disillusionment grips them, overpowers them. They are contributing to a large pool of unemployed youth. We already have large number of people unemployed, so they also add to that frustration. Youth, we often meet youth who are very frustrated and then blame the system and blame their fate. So frustration would be there, and of course, when they are facing this kind of stressful situation, fight or flight. Many people They fly away from the scene, they fade away from the scene, disillusioned, highly frustrated, and some they fight it out, they went on a wrong path. And that's why, especially, we have very high insurgency rates. We used to have. Now, of course, things are improved. This is happening in a country which boasts of the oldest civilization in the world. India is a country which basically is one of the oldest civilizations, which has one of the oldest civilizations. Here, Vidwan or the learned people were always, rated higher than even the kings. There's a slope in our, mythological literature. Vidvatam Chanurupatam Chanavutli Kadachana Swadesi Pujite Raja Vidyanam Sarvati Pujite. Never compare learned person with, with a king. King is respected only within the political territory, but Vidwan or the learned people are respected everywhere. So, in fact, we belong to a country which promoted this kind of culture, and the role of Guru was very high. We have history of having wonderful universities, Nalanda and other universities, which were the centers of great learning. And as Professor Singhaiya rightly mentioned, now our students are going abroad for good education, but earlier they really had to compete. They had to compete to get into this kind of universities like Nalanda and Taxila and this kind of universities. So we had that kind of educational institutions, but then long years of slavery, long centuries of slavery, I would say, changed the scenario. And this all these great universities, great learning systems withered away with the passage of time under this long slavery. And we all know, we all criticize Macaulay, but I'm a great admirer of Macaulay, who who came out with an education policy which suited their interest quite well. This 1835, this English Education Act was enacted in 1835, and a new system of education was initiated in India. And that system, of course, tilted heavily in favor of British interest. It was basically done to serve British interest. But see the beauty of this education system, it lasted for more than 185 years. I mean, 1835, and now in 21st century also we are using that system. What a wonderful piece of work Macaulay presented. There is a saying that if you're planning for 1 year, plant rice. If you're planning for 10 years, plant trees. And if you're planning for 100 years, educate people. And this is what he did. And his education policies lasted, as I said, more than 185 years. It's time that it is the most appropriate time that we needed a change. Of course, the last change happened 3 decades back, and after that, we did not see much changes in our education system. That itself shows what kind of priority we give to our education. And now, finally, better late than never. Now we have a national education policy which has come out with very innovative steps, innovative ideas, which very well, fits into our concept of New Bharat, Naya Bharat. Okay? In New India, we are relying heavily on our youth dividend. India is a young country, and we have young people dominating the population, and they are very energetic. They are much better than people belonging to my generation. They are far more enlightened, and they would continue to dominate our economy for many more years. And presently, literacy rate is improving in India. Number of academic institutions have gone up, number of graduates, number of postgraduates have increased. So India appears to be, ready to reap the advantages of this knowledge economy, and it's right time that we have this education policy. But unfortunately, heart breaks when we see people, even who have done their post graduation, they have also acquired PhD degrees, and look forward to very menial jobs. We have come across cases in Uttar Pradesh where even PhD holders were eyeing for a very low position peon positions at government organizations. Then, our uh, uh, appreciation flops. We are creating learned people, we are giving degrees, but what skill are we giving to them? Well, are they ready to take care of themselves and their families? So this is where we are forced to think. We have many good institutions in the country. We have a large number of central universities. If I remember correctly, we have more than 50 central universities, uh, more than 400 state universities, uh, more than 100 deemed universities, and thousands of standalone institutions, academic institutions. Okay? A very enviable record. A very enviable record. I mean, this kind of network of academic institution is rare in other countries. But uh, the darker side is how many great scientists we have produced in last few years. In fact, if we look back to pre-independence era, we have produced many great scientists. But in post-independence era, very rare, very few names come to our mind. Okay, and our universities, so many universities, how many of them can tall in the world ranking list? Okay? I don't think any university is there in QS ranking among top 100 in the QS ranking. Okay? Only three institutions, IIC, IIT Bombay, and IIT Delhi, figure among the top 200, world ranking institutions. So, no Nobel laureate so far from any of these universities in post-independence era. Okay. While Oxford University has produced more than 60 Nobel laureates, Cambridge has hit a century, more than 100 Nobel laureates it has produced. Harvard, California, Berkeley, they all have again made centuries as far as production of Nobel laureates is concerned. University of Chicago has also hit a century, 100 Nobel laureates they have produced. How many of us, how many universities in India have produced Nobel laureates? It's time to introspect, and that is why I say this new education policy, national education policy, has come at a very right time. Probably giving cognizance to these facts, Government of India has come out with this national education policy. I need not go into details because Professor Singh has already highlighted what this policy, uh, uh, comprise. Of course, it gives national Indian ethos to education. Education would be more value-based in this new system, nationalistic. Of course, if we do not, take pride in being Indian, if we do not take pride in studying Indian universities, then I must say we are failing somewhere. And this education policy also offers back to school concept, which is prevalent in other, especially in US universities. Uh, I have completed maybe few years study, and then I want to continue. I can go back and work in the industry, and then again I can join. I can come back to school once again. So this kind of concept makes gives more flexibility, and then credit bank Not necessarily that we complete degrees in just one go. Many times, many students succumb to some circumstances, and they have to leave their studies in the middle. But now we have a credit bank. We can earn few credits, and it's there in our credit bank. We can continue. So that gives more flexibility. That appears, this kind of education appears to be more practical. Multidisciplinary education, Meru, multidisciplinary education research universities. It's a welcome thing. In past few years, we have seen the emergence of ICERs. Okay? These are very good national level of excellence. Institutions of excellence. So we need to have more such universities which are basically dedicated for research, and we are operating in this WPO era. We have to have our own intellectual properties which is patented in our name. How long we are going to rely on foreign innovations? We need to have our own intellectual property patented in our name. So another good thing I see here in this is, standalone institutions. Colleges will be able to give degrees, but the system of affiliation to universities will be phased out in next 15 years. That's a welcome thing. At one point of time, when I was in college, Agra University used to cover almost all the colleges of Uttar Pradesh. That was one of the biggest universities in whole of Asia, and I won't be surprised if it was number one in the world as far as number of affiliated colleges were concerned. And now also, on an average, our universities are giving affiliation to 100 and more than 200 colleges. So it leads to a situation of diseconomies of scale. We are basically, we are not able to manage things well. I happened to, during my introduction, Sugata ji mentioned that I worked in NIF, National Institute of Foundry and Forward Technology. We were affiliated to one university. We were a standalone institution. We used to conduct our exam timely, but for results, we had to send the results to university, and it will take its own time. Results will be declared after 3 months, 4 months, the whole thing. But anyway, we were able to offer next semester classes to our students. But it leads to a lot of management problem of plenty, I would say. So it is good. I see it as a positive sign that very soon we will be, our colleges will be able to give their degrees. Okay? Again, this value-based education, this is what is required. National pride is very important. All those who fail to take pride in being Indian or being a part of an Indian university, they cannot do much justice. I would like to quote Swami Vivekananda, when he was going to attend this Parliament of Religions in Chicago. En route, he stopped in Japan, and he was searching for some fruits. And he said, "Oh, in Japan, it seems fruits are not available." A young boy was listening to him, and he said, "You just wait. You want some fruit? Just wait. Don't say that no fruits are not available in Japan." He rushed to his home and brought a basket full of fruits and handed it over to Swamiji and said, "Please don't tell anybody that in Japan you didn't get fruits." So this kind of national pride, this kind of nationalistic attitude has made Japan what it is today. Right? So national pride is very, very important. Autonomy to institution is very good point of this education policy. And then education zone. Creation of education zone. Yes, in fact, Northeast also lagged behind for years altogether with very few academic institutions. Of course, now this liberalization of education is there. Now we have many private universities coming up, and good government public universities also coming up. So now priority is given to this kind of zones. Special education zones are being created, and many lost language which were declared dead languages, Pali, Prakrit and all, will get a new lease of life once this new education policy is implemented. We know that in ancient India, a lot of scientific advancement had taken place, but that got lost because normally knowledge was disseminated through the words of mouth, or it was transmitted using these ancient languages which were declared dead. So once we learn these languages, we'll be able to read out many those Buddhist scriptures, many Jain scriptures, and we'll be able to know our glorious past, and we can draw a lot of insights from that. So that again a good thing I can see. In 1991, India came out with new economic policy, and with new economic policy, we used the term LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. And in 2020, we came out with the National Education Policy. Again, I call it NEP. So NEP also has this LPG, liberalization of syllabi, liberalization of education system. You can continue, you can leave, you can join again. So liberalization is there, that is going to help us in a big way. Globalization, privatization is also there. A lot of private universities will be coming now with this liberalized environment, with government, focusing on inviting foreign investment in the education sector. We can expect some good foreign universities coming to India. So globalization will also improve the scenario. In fact, ISB Hyderabad, once it came, it gave a very tough, challenge to well-established IIMs also. It broke the monopoly of IIMs, and in fact, they had to restructure their strategies to negotiate challenges that came from this institution. In fact, ISB's graduates pass outs were getting much better pay package. So IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Bangalore, well-established institutions, they also had to change their strategy. So once we have this, global players coming to India, our institutions will also improve. Okay? I always welcome this globalization thing. Many people think that the big sharks will eat away our small players. It didn't happen. After new economic policy also, we emerged much stronger when we were to face the competition. So I'm sure Indian institutions, Indian universities, Indian private universities will be able to accept this challenge. So privatization, globalization, and we have some very good private institutions. We have this IISc Bangalore, which started as a private initiative from Tatas. We have TIFR, which again was started by Tatas. Okay? These institutions, private institutions, Birla Institute of Technology, okay, and this Mahe Manipal University, all these private universities are doing quite well. So why not encourage more and more private investment in higher education? I think that's a good thing. So liberalization, globalization, privatization, this thing is going to be here in the education sector also, and I'm sure by promoting this LPG, new national education policy has done a yeoman service. And holistic education, not just for job. I come back to my first discussion when I quoted Modi ji when he asked a postgraduate, "What do you do?" Now, education should be such that if a graduate or any person who is pursuing education, if he or she is asked, "What do you do?" they should be able to spell out very clearly what they are capable of doing. So, vocational education would be given a new fillip once this education policy is implemented properly. Uh, in fact, many things which are there in this education policy uh, still exist. In fact, my parent organization, Nearest Arunachal Pradesh, has this modular pattern of education, technical education. We take students there after class 10. They go through a 6-year degree program and then they are given a BTech degree. After completing first 2 years, they are given certificate which is equivalent to ITI certificate. After completing 4 years, they are given diploma certificate, and after completing 6 years, they get degree. Again, this multi-entry, multi-exit system is there. After completing certificate program, one can leave and join industry, work for their own organization. They can start their own unit. And after 2 years, they can again come back by taking this marriage entrance exam too. Like that, we have multi-entry, multi-exit systems there. But honestly, I'm telling you that this system has failed. Why? Because anybody who joins Nearest would like to leave Nearest only after completing BTech degree. Because a diploma holder or a certificate holder, how good he or she may be excellent in their vocation, but they don't get the kind of respect an engineer gets. Okay? So mindset also needs to be changed. So we'll have to change mindset of the people. Just changing system will not help. So a good technician is as good as a good engineer. A good diploma holder engineer also deserves respect. In fact, in private organizations, we do uh, uh, have this kind of things in practice. This Procter and Gamble vice president, uh, he was just a certificate holder, and he rose to the position of vice president of Procter and Gamble sometime back. So once we give this kind of recognition, then people won't mind leaving education, working for some organization, and then again coming back to school if it is required. Yeah? So uh, I think I've taken a little longer, so I would like to conclude quickly. Small organization, it is basically focusing on colleges giving their degrees. I always say that economy of scale is good, but at the same time we should prevent entering into the next level diseconomies of scale. So Schumacher has written a very good book, Small is Beautiful. So small single unit institutions can do a real good job, and they are doing a good job. Compare IITs and IIMs with bigger universities, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind admitting that they are doing much better. So small is beautiful. Let's go for uh, small institutions. Let us empower small institutions, standalone institutions. Let us as this education system is focusing on vocational education, let us produce job providers rather than producing job seekers. This system will have more nation-centric education. This education policy basically is trying to promote nation-centric national pride. Let us not feel inferior to anybody. Again, I would like to quote our present Prime Minister, who right after taking the charge of the Prime Minister, he said, न किसी को आंखें दिखा के बात करेंगे, न किसी के आगे आंखें झुका के बात करेंगे, आंखों में आंखें डाल के बात करेंगे. So this kind of, I am okay, you are okay approach is required, and we should not feel inferior in front of anybody. Our institutions, why can't we have Howard-like institutions in India? Why can't Nehu be equal to Stanford, right? It is just it's just a mindset. We can. I would like to quote Henry Ford, who said, if you think you can or if you think you cannot, in both the cases you're right. So let us have a positive thinking. Let us believe that we can, and I'm sure we will have our own set of our own versions of Harvard and Stanford and all that. So Professor Singhaiya mentioned that going out, brain drain. Let us take the advantage of brain gain this time. Let foreign students come to India and study in Indian university. Let us utilize their brains. Let our brains not, let our people not look for Western universities. Let them, let those IITs, IIM people join, Indian organization, Indian universities for higher education. Let us, this education policy focuses on creation of knowledge and skill, not on just producing degrees. So that's again a good sign, I find. But again, lastly, I would like to say that India has earned infamous distinction of coming out with the most wonderful plans. We have produced most wonderful schemes, and the following lines, which are rarely implemented in its latent state. Let national education policy not fall into that trap. Let the new education policy be a reality. And why have we failed in our university system on many occasions? Because having been associated with higher education for the last 34 years, I also take the responsibility for our failure. We are going for inbreeding. I have guided a student for PhD program. I'll make sure that he or she gets into my university as faculty. That's really, really doing a lot of harm. Okay? We will have to come out of this Dhritarashtra syndrome, right? We have developed good products. Let them, in our Gurukul system, they used to go to jungle and study under the, learned supervision of their gurus. And then after graduating, they were, sent out from the Gurukul to earn their living, because they were, empowered with so much of skill and knowledge. They were, they had enough confidence to move out of the, Gurukuls and earn their living. This kind of system we need to do. We must provide best of the education and make them competent so that they can earn. There's no Dhritarashtra syndrome, no inbreeding. Again, Mathadhis are not required. Let the education be, in West, we have professors who get a term. Maybe they work for 3 or 4 years in Harvard or Trinity. After that, they have to look for something else. But the kind of permanency we are offering here to people, that is also taking its toll. And politicization of education. So education is supposed to cater to a particular political ideology. That needs to be changed. Education is not just passing or sharing information. Education means transforming. Education is a medium to transform characters, transform people. So that we need to say. And then again, I often in a lighter way we say we should shun this fake glorification. Just today also I got a message on my WhatsApp that we are organizing some, best teacher or something like that, and you have been chosen, though they do not even know that, they do not even know my background. Okay? They say you have been chosen as the best teacher, so fake glorification. And many times by getting these awards, we go for self-gratification. Okay? We are happy, we show off, we market these things. We, the teachers must avoid all these things. We should not be, gratifying ourselves with these fake things. We comfort zones. As I mentioned, we have too much of job security, 6 pay commission, 7 pay commission. We are operating from a comfort zone, no challenges. I think we must make the task a little more challenging for our academicians. And private institutions, as I said, in US, in other Western countries, private universities are doing extremely well. But why our private universities are not able to cope up? Why they are not able to compete with public universities? Because they have their own pay structure, they have their own system, and peanuts attract only monkeys. And they are giving such low pay scales, low perks, then obviously no good people will go there. Okay? So these are some of the things that this new education, the national education policy is trying to negotiate, and I'm hopeful that this time uh, whatever we have planned, we will be able to achieve this. So implication would be positive, and it is quoted that famous quote: "If you're planning for 100 years, educate people." If Mekalay's policy could last for 185 years, let this new national education policy, pave the way for the development of next 100 years. So I stop here. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I had prepared something which I could not share with you all, but I hope whatever I could speak made little sense. Okay. So thank you very much. And if you have any question, I'll be open to that. Thanks.
So thank you, Professor Pant. It was very, very interesting, and rooting it, the cultural rooting in, how we have to go beyond the Macaullism and how the needs of the new generation, the new educational policy is trying to address, including a feeling of national pride, which is very important, and the LPG, as you have so beautifully put it. So it's been very, very interesting. I would say that listening to both Professor Singh and Professor Pant has been very, very illuminating, especially I can speak for myself, and I'm sure that is what most of the and all of the audience must be feeling. There's so much that we have gathered, so many inputs. And therefore, I would like now to open the session out to the House. Questions are most welcome, but we would be grateful if you would kindly say, address either Professor Singh or Professor Pant, depending on who you want to ask a question to. So kindly unmute yourself when you speak up. Thank you. So please do ask questions. I personally say it was a very, very interesting session. So I'm sure all of you are equally, enjoyed the session. So kindly speak up and come up freely especially the scholars. Do speak up. And of course, we have so many great academicians. We'd like your inputs too. Thank you. Could I personally ask a question, if I may, to Professor Singh? I have
Madam.
for Professor Singh, yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes,
What made you, in your speech, you've talked a lot about the dropouts. So I feel that you have very, very, compassionate view about that, and you believe that that is one of the major problems of our whole educational system, that in this youth of India, quite a sizable portion are dropouts. I think for you that is the major issue which really needs to be addressed, a very, very major issue. And perhaps vocational education, as you said, would stop child labor, child abuse and things like that. So could you just, I was really appreciating that part. So could you just tell us a little more about that what makes you so focused on this area?
Thank you, Dr. Sujata. Well, if you really look onto the rural aspect, if you find, because I had been to some part of Rajasthan, I'm talking about some 24 years before. So, to my mind, when I used to look to these things, it was a very common practice there. Maybe because of that they are not getting a continuous financial support from the back of it, or maybe because of some problem, faced by their parents, maybe because they wanted that their child should do something. So there were enormous of reasons for this. But what I feel, if you look into this particular phase of NEP 2020, I'm sure if you look into such practices, it is just like a favicol attitude there. You see, you are being favicol there, and you can only be favicol when you get something as an input from. So it's not an education here. It's sometimes I remember, the case of online education by Jules or something like this. They practice a very different way of getting depth of, to the heart of the learner. So that is the same practice there also we should follow, and we should come up with this. You see, some of the educations they say is giving this khichadis and giving this rice to these people. It will literally, these people they literally come for that, and if they do come for that, even if they invest 2 to 3 minutes time, they get a good learning. So I think this issue has to be put forward for, and this case is not with only a single case of Rajasthan. It is almost, if you look at all the 59 states, you'll find the same pattern here. If you go to Andaman Nicobar, you'll find that there are the depth of the rural. Still, they don't want to be changed, but still government they're trying to and get them into the real situations there. So that is some issues, and what I feel, ma'am, that if these people can be concentrated, of course, government is doing, and a lot of previous governments they've also done it. But I think this is what we can increase our literacy rate to a very good standards. That was the reason I have discussed this one.
Thank you. That was very, very interesting. And if I may ask, the next question I wanted to ask Professor Pant, in fact, it's not a question as much as a comment, and I really enjoyed that part about how you educate. I was enjoying that part, Professor Pant, about you said about how you educate a generation, and how you talked about national values and how great India was, and how we need to, take that entire, rooted in that culture, we need to move forward. And I think, it was very, very interesting the way you brought it on, and so, very simply and very clearly put it in how we need to be rooted in a culture. And you gave us a historical perspective. And I think that I would like to ask you, sir, is that what you believe, that, we could get back our great Indian traditions, our glory, because India is known as having been one of the greatest nations. And you had put it, so beautifully, instead of brain drain, you get a brain gain. People will be coming back to India. So do you believe, sir, that this wonderful future, which is good for our, wonderful new generation, would benefit this national education policy?
Right, ma'am. I'm fully convinced that this will happen. I'm fully convinced that this will happen because we have the potential. The only thing is, we were subdued by a kind of, dominance of West. We fell into the trap of that inferiority complex. Again, I would like to share a small incident where Swami Vivekananda was traveling in a train along with a British person, and they were traveling. He was traveling on a valid ticket in first-class compartment, which the Britisher didn't like. How can master and the slave travel together? He said, "Hey, tum dusre compartment mein jao." He asked Swamiji in Hindi, believing that he wouldn't be knowing English. He said, "Hey, tum dusre compartment mein jao." So Swamiji shot back. He says, "देखिए, आप मुझे आप करके बात कीजिए. You have no right to address me as tu. तो थोड़ा सा आप करके बात कीजिए." Then he says, "Hey, sorry man, I don't know your language." Then Swamiji ने कहा कि gentleman, you not only do not know my language, but you don't know your language as well. Otherwise, you would have addressed me as gentleman, right? So उस तरह का confidence is required now, and that kind of confidence can be instilled by this kind of education policy, which promotes national interest, which promotes national pride. And why not? We, many of our things, like recently this Ayurveda is getting, big priority, right? Yogasan, nobody knew about Yogasan. People started doing yoga only once it it was imported from Western countries in the form of yoga. Right? So we have this great knowledge, and in discovery of India, Jawaharlal Nehru devotes one complete chapter for India's advanced mathematics. We were so advanced in mathematics, and mathematics basically is the mother of all science and technology. We were so good. So if we believe in ourselves, and if we have that, if we have a feeling of I am okay, you are okay, I think we can do that. If you think we can, or if you think we cannot, in both the cases, you are right. I again quote Henry Ford Sr.
Thank you, sir. That was very, very interesting. I really like to, the beautiful replies we have got. Are there any questions with the house? Any questions?
Ma'am, there is a question from, I think, Khushbu Mittal from ISPA University. Khushbu, can you ask the question? I think he has put the question to Professor Pant, sir. And the question is that will this national policy of new education will be effective in upcoming years?
Okay. Upcoming years, what does he mean by upcoming years? Of course, it's a futuristic plan, and whenever we come out with plans, we have short-term plan, mid-term plan, and long-term plan also. A part of it would immediately be implemented. Whatever is possible, it will be, I'm sure, it will be implemented, and I'm sure universities must be working very hard to give it a shake. Right? So low-hanging fruits will be plucked immediately, and of course, things which will take slightly longer duration, I'm sure a lot of committees are being constituted, and I'm sure the kind of missionary efforts are being taken at the government level. I'm sure this policy will see the day of light. This policy will not succumb to any kind of bureaucracy. Yeah. I'm hopeful.
So just one question. I'm Abhigyan from Management Department. It is a question to both the esteemed resource persons, Professor Singh as well as Professor Pansa. This is my personal, just an observation. If you could kindly put some light on it from your own viewpoint. Say, I'm talking about, say, Central University faculty members. Now, there was a point made by the then HRD Minister Kapil Sibal once, that there should be a policy of rotation of faculty members from different central universities across India, say after every 3 years, just like central schools, So after that, it went into cold carpet, and then after that, nothing went off. But personally speaking, I really liked it, because in this way, what happens, we would come to know about different institutions. At the same time, there could be some rotation of, new blood in different institutions. So rather than being in the same institution up to superannuation, it's better that, just like central schools, the policy that they have, that after every 3 years or 4 years, there should be a rotation all across India. So why not this type of a system is also advocated for the central faculty members? What's your viewpoint, sir? It's just a personal observation from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Well, sir, to my mind, I think this is, Abhigyan sir, you have raised a very good question, but I'll put it to this way. Being into armed forces, I've served Indian Air Force, and I have faced this the same thing. Every 2 years we used to roll up our bag and baggages and keep on moving from one station to another station. So sometimes, when you go there, this is my personal opinion. You see, you cannot make it a generalized one. So to my mind, because I personally have seen this one, that the maximum tenure of officers were 3 years. So when you keep on moving from one place to another place, you need 6 months, to get it acclimatized to that particular area. So this was one of the problems. But what I felt was, you get a lot of learning when you keep on going to have a movement from one place to another place. This is no doubt at all. And at least in management, we can practice this, because what I feel, believes me, we do learn from wandering from here and there. So that is one practice, and I do. I'm with you. I'm raising my hand to this. That yes, this is one of the very good initiative.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and one should get into it, because I personally have practiced this. Being into armed forces, I've seen this. But yes, everything has a pros and cons. We should not look on the negativity and positivity side. But yes, one thing is there, that till the superannuation one person is there, and he feel like that I am here and nobody can touch me and nobody can smack me and nobody can push me out of this. So at least this type of movement should not be there. And I'm with you. And if I would have been to the creamy layers of a think tank, believe me, Abhigan sir, I would have definitely proposed this as a first point of view as an academician. Now over to Pan sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Yeah, Abhigyanji, very, you spoke my mind, in fact. I somewhere mentioned that we need to come out of the comfort zone. We need to come out of comfort zone, and also I mentioned, my anger against these mathadhis who are sitting there as the big bosses, will not allow anybody to grow within them, right? This is a wonderful thing, and in HRD, we learn the importance of job rotation. Even within organization, we move from one job to another. Hamari dedicated civil services, they are developing, control over several things by this job rotation thing. Okay? And I served in Ranchi, which is a very centrally located place. I was in very good institution, BIP, Desra, and then I was in National Institute of Foundry for Technology. And when I decided to come to Arunachal, many people were against the idea of going, many people were criticizing why you have to go to such far place and all that. But believe me, Abhigyanji, had I not come to Arunachal, had I not come to Northeast, I think I would have missed, this great learning opportunity. I learned quite a lot from this beautiful region. I had absolutely no idea. In fact, like any other, Indian, we know very little about this Northeast region. But had I not come here, I think my learning would have been just 10% of what I am today. Right? So we must keep changing jobs. We accept new challenges, and once we have new challenges, we learn to overcome these challenges. Also, our quality improves. Okay? So I think your idea is very well taken. That we should give this idea to our policymakers that we should move from one university to another place.
Right, sir. So my point is, it may not be 3 years. It may be at least 5 years, or it may be given. It may be made optional. Yes, so I'm not saying that compulsorily it has to be. I'm saying that those who are interested to move from one institution to the other, just for the sake of improvisation, it is not only personal but also institutional. If somebody wants it,
that will also pave the way for standardization. Every university will try, faculty members of every university will try to acquire a certain level. Like when you go to, from Nehu Dura, when you go to Ahmedabad, you will not find yourself out of place, right? So almost same standard. Whatever IIMs are doing, same you can do there also. Next moment you can go to some other university. So that will also pave the way for standardization. So there will not be much discrimination.
True. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So wonderful questions have been asked, and is there anybody else?
Ma'am, I would like to ask a question.
Sir.
Hello.
Madam, are you? Hello.
Yes, you are audible. You are audible.
Madam, one doubt, one observation from my side. In new education, this question to Professor Singh sir and Pan sir also. My one observation. The 2020 new education policy, that purpose the country is wanting more infrastructure, means physical infrastructure and financial infrastructure also. But in this situation, how can this education policy, probably in school education, they are wanting vocational, some vocational, that is after 6th class, they will give some vocational, either horticulture, either tailoring, either some that is a ITI, just like education fitter, electrician. Then that purpose, there's so much financial infrastructure, and another is the physical infrastructure necessary. Then within 1 to 2 years, how can it possible the country, our country, how will fulfill that? This is my one question.
But sir, can I enter into it?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Please.
Biswal sir, when there is a way, right?
Okay.
So what I feel is, if you stand for something and if you make a resistance, then things goes on the wrong side. If you pay peanuts, you'll get the monkeys. So I think when you are standing with positive perception, things will be moved on. Yes, there was a time when things were not there, and now things are, at least something is within our hand. So we can move on with this. And what I think, sir, that we need to have a positive attitude every time for every move. So I'm not favoring any party or I'm not favoring anyone. But what I feel is that when you're positive with something else, I think things are there to get in touch with the framework. I remember when you just forget about 2020 NEP, when the last 1986 when NEP was there, and at that time also not many. It went up. So if you really look on right from the independence, first we have really acquired many things. Our standards have moved, and we are doing better. And believe me, today morning only when I was referring to one of my person who was very close to me, and he was saying, "कि साहब हम आज के दौर में पैदा क्यों नहीं हुए? क्योंकि आज के दौर में बच्चा भी जो है, he has a very faster learning as compared to." I think these are the things which we are getting at. So Vishal sir, we are very true, but slowly, if we are positivity to every aspect, I think things will move on, and I'm sure. Day is not far when you keep on getting a lot of value additions to educational policies. Things were there. Today we are thinking government is coming up with lot many acceptable things. I just wanted to share you one thing. I was with the University of Cairo, with Cairo University in Egypt, and there my dean was an Egyptian, and he used to don't like the people, especially for Indian people. I don't know what makes him. So every time when I just wish him, he never answers me. Maybe I don't know what has done, because previously some of the colleagues, they have done something wrong with him. I don't know what was that, but he was very negative partial to every especially Indian people. So one day I just requested him, "Sir, I want to meet you." He has not given a time. So somehow I could manage to get a time, and then one day I went to his chamber, and I said, "Sir, what makes you every time I don't put it in this way that I'm putting a chamchagari or I'm putting some buttering to you, but in our tradition, when we wish someone, we get something else. So if you tell me that you don't wish, from tomorrow I will not wish, but I expect something from you, sir." And can you believe, sir? I mean, he was at that time 15 years elder to me, and he changed. Then he started narrating the stories about there was a person, he did like this. I said, "Sir, all fingers are not equal." And slowly, so I think you need to be here as a catalyst agent. Maybe if I'm not there, you will be there, but one has to come up with it. And you believe me, if you look to all revolutions, you'll find there is one person. Very recently, Pansah was given an example of Vivekananda ji. You see, that man has really changed the ideology of every thinkers. So one has to, but problem kya hai, Bhagat Singh should not be, taken birth to my home. Bhagat Singh to dusre side hona chahiye. So I think we should come up with this type of nations and this type of things. And I'm 100% sure, sir, I'm very much optimistic about this, that things will change. It has changed. If I asked my father, and when I ask him that how you go there, when he narrates the story about his schools, and when my father narrates the story about his father, things has drastically changed, sir. Over to Pansah.
Very nicely explained, Professor Singh. Right, it's off to you. And Vishal sir, I'll add on to what Professor Singh just now mentioned. I'll say that victory or defeat lies in our mind. I'll give the example of Indo-China relationship. Few years back, Professor Singh belongs to. He was at one point of time with the Indian Air Force. I'm sure he will love this. Okay? So a few years back, when China would enter into Indian territories, Indian side would simply say, this is just a difference of perception and all that. We used to make lame excuses, but we used to be very, very defensive. Now China is defensive, right? We are looking into their eyes like very strong entity. Now they are becoming defensive. Now they are saying that now Indian army is encroaching in our area. What changed? Just our thinking, mindset, right? So victory or defeat lies in our mind. If we think that we can win, we end up winning. If we raise our hand, then obviously we have lost the battle at itself. So if we know that we have to implement this education policy, we will come out with very innovative ideas. Now you see, for organizing this kind of event, you required lakhs and lakhs rupees investment earlier. Right? If you organize this in Pura campus, you have to invite Professor Singh all the way from Gurukul Kangadi University, Haridwar, and several other people. Okay, it will include a lot of investment, but now we are doing it almost free, right? It's free.
Correct.
We used to conduct one program here in NIID that would cost us around 5 to 6 lakh rupees. Now it doesn't even cost us 500 rupees, right? So we have to come up with innovative ideas, and I'm sure we can do it. I hope we have been able to answer.
Another thing I am thinking also, but no doubt Government of India is going to implement, but that purpose any financial budget, anything that implemented, financial budget, any no doubt pen and paper. Already education policy implemented, but that purpose any financial assistance, financial support, financial.
This is where we have to be looking for innovative, and I think this government is promoting innovations. This government is promoting innovations. Maybe like as I gave the example, online we are doing it almost free, right? So by not investing money, we have generated money.
Generating.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do that. We can think of these new ways of doing things. New normals will have to identify.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
It's been very, very wonderful, and it is true that it is, this very COVID pandemic has called for so much of innovation, and education is also moving along. And for the sake of our future generation, we have to think positive. We have to find the solutions. And it has been so wonderful having with us our panelists who have, really, really given us so much information and so much of experience that speaks through those informations. I would like to request Dr. Sunil Roke Akaija to kindly do the honors of the vote of thanks. Dr. Sunil Roke. Apparently, is he there?
He's there.
Dr. Deepak?
No, he's there. He's there.
Is there?
He's there. He's coming.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I would say it's been so interesting, yes.
Sunil, you are audible.
It's a good evening, everyone, once again. Being the convener of today's national webinar on National Education Policy 2020 Implications on Higher Education, organized by Council for Teachers Education Foundation, Meghalaya chapter, it gives me an immense pleasure in proposing a vote of thanks. I, on behalf of the organizing committee and CTEF Meghalaya chapter, I would like to thank many people for making this webinar a grand success. First, I would like to thank our patron of CTEF Meghalaya chapter and Pro-Vice Chancellor of Nehru campus, Professor G. Singhaiya, for the valuable support and guidance in all possible manners for organizing the webinar. Next, I would like to thank our respected and eminent speakers, Professor R.M. Pant and Professor V.K. Singh Sir, for their valued deliberations that have enlightened all of us about the topic and theme of today's webinar. Thank you so much, sirs. Next, I would like to thank all the invited delegates for making this webinar a success with their valued presence and participation. I also like to thank all the participants who have registered and participated actively with full enthusiasm, without whom the webinar is not possible. Last but not least, I would like to thank all my colleagues and office bearers of the CTEF Meghalaya chapter, particularly Professor Sujata Gurudev, Chairperson, and Dr. Deepak Bhagat, Secretary of CTEF Meghalaya chapter, for the active cooperation and support. Thank you all once again for all the cooperations and support that have been extended in organizing the webinar successfully. I once again thank you all. Thank you. With this, the webinar concludes, but a small announcement for our participants. E-certificates of the registered participants who have attended the full sessions will be emailed in their respective email IDs within 2 weeks, subject to the submission of this feedback link, which will be shared tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you, Bansar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful interacting. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Singh sir.
Sir.
अरे आया देवानंद सिंह साहब
Biswal ji, thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline ma'am. Everybody who is there.
Thank you. How are you, Deepak?
I'm fine, ma'am. Good.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, ma'am. Bye-bye.
हो सर
Biswal ji, thank you.
thank you भाई you are secretary of the Meghalaya chapter okay congratulations
Yeah, from my side also, congratulations. Deepak. Nice.
okay successful program is over okay
Sunil, Sujata madam, all the office bearers, everybody का काम है.
है सर हम लोग है.
oh convener sir congratulations
अरे thank you sir.
Sujata madam चला गया.
president madam okay
madam. ठीक है, everybody, bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.